How I flicked myself into a car with Adobe After Effects. A story of Oscar-worthy acting and hilarious editing results. I mean, what the fuck is this? Damn! Project files and footage can be found by subscribing to my site below. So with that being said, let us begin.
Here I come. Oh, here I come.
Setup. In order to edit this, I had to film the following shots. The first was myself going to the park, looking at the car, and then pretending to run to the camera and then fall back. The second was my hand doing the flick gesture. The third was the car driving towards me. And the fourth, me in the car pretending I just landed.
Nice.
The first step was to align these shots correctly. I did this in Premiere Pro as I found it easier, and plus I would come back here afterwards to do sound design and coloring. Once the timing was roughly set, I selected everything, right click and open it in After Effects with Dynamic Link. So I'm gonna be honest, I kind of did everything in random orders because of my ADHD, but in essence, the steps were like this. 1. Rotoscope in my hand and doing the flick. The reason for this is it gives me control of the gesture, and so I can time it perfectly to the jumping. I also had to do some color matching of the hand to make sure that the hand fits into the scene. I did this with Rotobrush 2.0. The next thing I did was create a clean plate from the point where I jumped and was in the air. This is so I can make myself warp without affecting the background. I did this with Adobe Firefly by exporting this frozen frame and then just masking it out. But afterwards I had to get rid of this Adobe Firefly beta watermark. I just did that with the Content Aware tool in After Effects. Next, I masked out the car from the shot where I pretended to land. And this is so I can keyframe it coming into frame with the position effect. Once it came in, I also keyframed it leaving. So first, for the animation of my body, I had to rotoscope it first using the Rotobrush tool. Plenty of tips on rotoscoping in my rotoscoping masterclass, which you can check below or in Skillshare. Once I rotoscoped my body, I was left with the following layers: the clean plate, the car sliding, and me. If you're wondering what the flicking animation was, it came before I went in the air. Oh, by the way, when I flicked myself, I also added a smoke puff from Storyblocks to get that impact. Now it's time to use the puppet tool. This is where things get really funny. I mean, this is ridiculous. So the puppet position pin tool, wow, that's a mouthful, is such a fun tool.
Nice.
You can basically click on different points on an object, for example, the joints, my hands, etc. And if you move a few frames forward, you can move these points independently and it actually stretches out your object. So you can do this for, you know, bodies and cars and whatever. And I can't lie, bro, it got to the point where I look like a fetus.
What?
So I keyframed myself getting smaller and landing inside the car, which was only useful once I had the timing of the car from the previous steps. But if you look at the animation, it looks a little bit weird, right? Like things aren't really realistic. Even though I've timed it perfectly and aligned it so that the fetus body lands perfectly around the head, still doesn't look right, okay? So here is my two-step solution to this. 1, I created a shape underneath the window and made it into a mask to make it look like I went inside the car. With the shape selected, I used the button for the matte and I track matted it to the body. And now as I go in, it looks like my body goes through the window. The second thing was, after pre-composing the puppet version of myself, I added an adjustment layer and then masked out the top area of my giant looking head. Then I added the lumetric color effect to drop down the brightness, and then tracked this mask as I go into the car to make it look like the roof of the car cuts out the light. Details, fam. It's all in the details. Then I messed around with the feather to make it look a little bit smoother. Now the lighting actually matches the scene. It looks like I go inside the car and the lighting gets cut off. And now the Pieta Resistance, I added a mask to the wheel of the car, and as the car slides forward, I rotated these wheels so it looks like the car is driving forward, but the wheels are also slowing down. And I used keyframes and the graph editor to do so. The final step on After Effects was to add an adjustment layer over everything and keyframe camera movements, kind of zooming in and zooming out, which helped hide some of the cuts, like when I look to the right and when I look back. And not forgetting to add motion blur. Now we go back to Premiere Pro where I add some sound effects to help sell the effect, and we do some color grading. And that is how we get this final effect.
How partnering with Adobe saved me from this car. No. Whoa. Oh.
If you want to learn how to make some more cool edits, just click right here. Make sure to subscribe and check out the project files down below. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video.